Welcome to worship at First Unitarian Church of Rochester, New York. I invite you now to join me in voice, body, and spirit as we sing our opening hymn, Kindred, We Now Meet to Worship.
Kindred, we now meet to worship, reaching out through screen and phone. Though we dwell in isolation, we don't have to be alone. Worshipping beyond our building, our connections no less real. Though we cannot meet in person, covenant unites us still. Friends, be gentle with each other. There's so much we're going through. May this be a time for healing, holding space for grieving too. Bodies, minds, and hearts are weary. Anguish fills the aching soul. But we know with perseverance, broken hearts can be made whole. Siblings share a song of gladness, lifting spirits, spreading cheer, so that in these days of sadness we won't be consumed by fear. In this time of mass confusion, sickness, loss, and overwhelm, let's encourage one another. Hands not joined, but hearts are held.
Welcome on this crisp autumn day to First Unitarian Church of Rochester's online worship. Our mission here is through spiritual connection and community. We listen deeply to others and ourselves, open to wonder and transformation, and serve together with love and humility. I'm Shannon Foose, membership coordinator, and leading worship today is a wonderful group of folks. We have Reverend Sherry Holiday Kwan, Reverend Margalie Belazaire, Tommy Snell, Nadia Adams, Orange Sky, Arson, and Brock. And what a group. Behind the scenes, we have our ushers, we have Tim Farnham, Emily Sanjamuela, Emma Hale, and all the others just helping to make this service go smoothly and safely. I have the honor of introducing our guest preacher today, Dr. Elias Ortega. He is president and professor of religion, ethics, and leadership at Meadville Lombard Theological School. Meadville Lombard is one of our two Unitarian Universalist seminaries. And so this is one of the primary places where our UU ministers and other leaders are trained. We count among the alumni of Meadville Lombard one of our very own, Reverend Margalie. Dr. Ortega has been a leader for many years in the larger UU community and has recently been a member of UUA's Commission on Institutional Change. Even as we continue to meet online, our newsletter is, of course, the best way to make sure you have the details about what's going on, both on Sundays and between Sundays and everything that's going on during the week. There has been a lot of stress these days with everything going on in the world. And we are offering 2 trauma workshops, of which I want to make you especially aware and really invite you in. One is tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. and the next one is Wednesday, October 28th. And lastly, of course, after every service, we have conversations and connections, and I really invite you to stay for this fun time. You get to see old friends, meet new friends, and just connect with those in our church. Next, we have a wonderful guest, our very own Nadia Adams, who is a new young adult, and she will be voting for the first time this year. And she is going to light the chalice for us. So let's all take a deep breath together as we settle into this sacred time and place. Please join me in our chalice lighting words as we say them in unison. May the flame we now kindle inspire us to use our power to heal with love, to help with compassion, to bless with joy, and to seek liberation in the fullness of community.
I realized I had a slight dilemma a few weeks after having moved into my new apartment here in Rochester. I live in a 2-unit house where I have the upstairs apartment and a young couple lives below me. The problem was around garbage collection. More specifically, who puts out the trash bin on trash collection day? Was it the managing company, us, the tenants, or some mystical creatures whose job it was to do such things? And on which day does all this happen? I didn't know, and I would never remember until I'd hear the truck pull up, at which point I would promise to reach out to the managing company or my neighbors and get the lowdown. Of course, that would never happen, and I would only think about it again the next time the truck pulls up. I'd feel like a slacker, and also I didn't want my neighbors to think badly of me. Thankfully, one evening I happened to be retrieving mail at the same time as one of them. Finally, I got to ask. And she responded that they had the same problem figuring that out when they moved in. We both laughed. I learned that it was the responsibility of the three of us to put out the bins on trash day, which I also learned was on Thursday morning. Good, I said, with a sigh of relief, finally knowing. Let's take turns. I'll do this month, and the two of you can do the next, I continued. She replied, "Oh, no, that's not necessary. I don't mind putting them out." She didn't mind. All this angst, and she didn't mind. They didn't mind. This complicated thing to me now was made so simple. And I think that's why we come to church, to get clarity on things that might at first seem so complex, to ease our minds, to connect us in community.
Please join me in singing our next hymn, Dear Weaver of Our Lives' Design.
Dear weaver of our lives' design, whose patterns all obey, with skillful fingers gently guide the sturdy threads that will survive the tangle of our days. Take up the fabric of our lives with hands that gently hold. Bind in the ragged edge that care would sunder and that pain would tear, and mend our raveling souls. The ties that in the plainest cloth our hidden beauty see, discern
Hello again, dear ones. I invite you now into the spiritual practice of generosity. Each week, we take up an offering which is split between our church and an organization and a wider community that leads us in the work of justice and compassion. Today, our collection will be split with Midville Lombard Theological School, a seminary that is close to my heart. Simply put, Midville trains ministers to do ministry in the present world, not the world we wish we had, and with a strong commitment to work towards a just and compassionate world. For me, I could not have gone to seminary anywhere else but Meadville, not only because it's a UU seminary, as that was important to me, but for its emphasis on practice. Yes, we read plenty of books, maybe all the books, and we spent a lot of time at the library. We wrote more than enough. What's special about Midville and what separates this from the rest for me is that ministers in utero get to practice what they're learning in real life settings, get to apply what they're learning while learning it. So we come out of seminary having some ideas about our styles and having figured out a lot about ourselves as people committed to accompanying others on their spiritual journeys. So please give generously to support the life-affirming work of Midville Lombard Theological School and First Unitarian Church. There are so many ways to give, including Venmo, Simple Church, or by mailing a check. Please give generously.
When I wake up in the garden, peaceful slumber wakes my eye. The sun and moon are always present. There are no more crying people around. Love feels all up inside me, filling my heart with wishful dreams. No more sorrow fills my canvas. Oh, along this lonely sea, ships fall off of the horizon, bringing love, peace, and joy. No fire can ever harm us. Only music fills the air. Silver turquoise teardrops drip down into a window
The weather and the seasons and the leaves are changing. And change has a way of sneaking up on us, sometimes coming faster than we expect. You know this. So I thought I'd get outside while I can. It is good to be out here. Good to be here with all of you. Let's listen together, wherever you are. Let's take a collective moment of silence and listen. Here it's cars and motorcycles, squirrels and birds, somebody walking by on their morning walk. Maybe for you, it's the whirl of an old laptop or a space heater warming your toes. Whatever it is, life is buzzing all around us. Life invites us as a partner in this weaving of great noise and mystery. Our siblings in Christian churches, those who follow the lectionary, many today are talking about rendering unto Caesar what is Caesar's. And still others will look to the Hebrew Testament and read about a time when Moses demands to see God's face, but God only shows their backside. Divinity and sacredness and holiness conspires with humanity to look in the same direction. They move out into the unknown mystery together. Only their backside showing that they might peer together into an unknown future. We listen in the lap of change and creation. Spirit of life and love, may we be held in courage, in strength, in openness and vulnerability. We'll be led again and again to listen, to open, and to serve. May we know that in our gathering, our connections here, though virtual, happening through digital lines and logons, may we know that these connections crack open the door every moment that we lean into them for deeper relationship, for a weaving of new stories. May we collectively conspire towards building a better world. May we know that the future is unknown. This great mystery holds a part for all of us, and that we have listening and loving to do. This is our great work. May we take it up faithfully and well, each and every day. Amen, and blessed be.
Good morning, everyone. It is a deep pleasure to be here with you this morning in this digital space. I bring greetings from Meadville Lombard Theological School and the greater Meadville community to each and every one of you. I'm really grateful to Reverend Sherry for the invitation to be with you this morning and share some words in our times. As I start, I want you to take a moment, take a few centering breaths, and let's make space to hear the ways in which the holy shape our lives in community into new meaning. Weaving our sacred stories. There's a question that I would like to pose to you this morning, and it is this: what stories have sustained you? What stories have sustained you? In March, our stories radically shifted. Our lives got interrupted by a pandemic that slowly was looming in the distance and hit home. Many of us saw our lives reshaped, our workplace closing down, our family life alter as we find ways to not only maintain a sense of normalcy in unnormal times. In these times of worried and concerned, our lives sped up very rapidly and dramatically so. I don't know for you, but for me, it was not until some point in May when I had a moment that I can sit down and breathe for a while. And that is to say, a moment in which the day to day came to a halt and I just couldn't sustain the pace anymore. I needed to slow down. In those moments in which I will admit I started to enter into depression, I started remembering the stories and conversations with dear friends and beloved. It was this moment in late May and early June when more personal calls started to happening for me. That is to say, a moments of remembrance. I think within my network of friends and families, we were able to make a space, to gather together yet again. I will admit that it was very, very strange for me to understand that my dining table for a while will only be my family, my loved ones, my children. It was really strange for us because almost every weekend we find ways to make space and be in community with others into our space. In fact, it has become a meaning-making practice in our families to be in collective company with others. So how did we start then to make meaning of the current times? I want to ask you to think about those stories that sustain you as a thread, as a single strand that is part of a larger collective story. Each one of us has particular stories that we bring. These are personal stories and memories of things that have brought you joy in the past. I know for me, some of my favorite stories to share are those stories in which I find ways to be closer to bodies of water, whether rivers, oceans, lakes. You see, because for me, growing up in an island, being close to bodies of water is a place of comfort and it's a place of joy. But those are places of joy and comfort because those were also spaces in which we gather in communities of friends, in community of family, to share a meal, to share in the fun, but to be together. However, undoubtedly so, in those moments in which we share deep interconnection with one another, there was a space in which sacred stories were shared. You see, these sacred stories could be stories of pain and harm that are put into a space of collective belonging with others. Those single strands may be stories shared out of a place of deep woundedness, but also deep trust that by sharing those stories in community, those single strands will be cared for. As a community who are called to be together, to aspire to live into justice and compassion and equity, I want us to think about our sacred community as a loom. You see, looms are these instruments, beautiful, beautiful instruments made of wood, in which different strands are weaved together into a larger tapestry, into a larger cloth. You see, when we bring our individual stories into a community, our personal stories and our sacred stories as an act of belonging, what we're doing is quite simply adding our strands to those of others. Your story, my story, belonging together in community. Now, we need to also be mindful that our stories have many different colors and many different textures. Many of us who are today Unitarian Universalists were shaped by other faith traditions. Our stories of understanding the sacred and the holy in other spaces then are weaved and threaded with a larger tapestry of being Unitarian Universalist. It is also true that our stories, as we are weaving them together collectively in a larger community of faith, become something larger than what they originally were. My strand in connection with your strand and the strands of the other members of the worshiped community and members of the larger Unitarian Universalist communities and friends become a wider tapestry of faith. It is important then for us to tend to the tension with which we weave these stories, to care for them, to be sure that as we lining our stories together, that we pay attention to every individual thread as is being weaved to the larger tapestry. I say that for us in this particular moment of social distancing, it becomes even more important to have an intentionality to bring our stories together into spaces of worship. I don't know for you, but I know for me, spending more time in my phone, texting my friends and my loved ones, sharing a thought, sharing a prayer, being joining concern has grown in deeper significance. These are not things to be taken for granted. It is also true that as we weave stories together, we need to be mindful of those stories that we want to put forward to the next generation. Who knows what the future will hold for us? It is clear, however, that our social world and our society is being deeply transformed. What shape would evolve? What are the aspirations and dreams and hopes of our young ones? Can they see what the future will look like and envision their place in that new world? I have wondered myself that as I raise two young children. I also wonder as I accompany friends that have children in high school leaving or were hoping to leave into college. I wonder as I care and love my elderly parents from the distance, what will tomorrow hold for us? How do we make sense of today to speak a word into tomorrow? For me, what has kept me grounded has been the story of my ancestors and my elders, have been the stories of friends who are finding ways to make meaning out of this time. What are the new rituals that are giving meaning to your space? How are you organizing your days to ground yourself, but be intentionally with others? You see, those are the ways in which our tapestry gains shape, gain colors, gain texture, gain the facility to wrap others in love. It is through our interconnection to the ways in which our stories are weaved together that we can make something larger, that we can make this tapestry that we can cover others with. It is a challenge, however, for us to understand that cloth is also not permanent, right? The more that we love a cloth and we use it, that we wrap ourselves with it, or that we cut it and shape it into something new, inevitably change will happen. Those of us who are artists of fabric and cloth understand that it takes patience and it takes dedication and deep love to make a cloth. But then the cloth, once it comes out of the loom, it is not finished. The cloth itself is finished, but it's in the process of becoming something else, something new. At time, it may become, remain in the shape to be given a new use, like an altar cloth, like a shawl. But at times, it will also be cut and shaped and reshaped into something new. These are gifts that we give to others as a sign of appreciation and love. It could be something a more practical use, like a tie or a sock, or perhaps weave into a shirt. But the reality is that that cloth that was once weaved in a particular shape has been transformed into something new and given a new use. And as that use evolved, a new story is created, shaped by our hands. As a faith community, what are the ways in which our stories are coming together and are weaved not only into a whole, but also how are we open to shape those stories and that whole of our community into something new? Into something new that cares for others, into something new that is passed on as a token of love and appreciation, as something that is given to the comfort of others in times of needs, as a sign of saying, we are holding you close to our heart. Wrap yourself in our love. That is the mark of a faith community, the ability and the opportunity for us to be with others in love and compassion, particularly in times that are tender, in times of loss and grief. In our times, many of us are experiencing and will continue to experience deep loss. How are we covering ourselves in the stories that we live together as a community to give us hope? Many of us understand that our life will no longer be the same. However, as a faith community committed to mutual liberation, committed to spiritual growth, how are we empowering each other to not only live again a new day, but to pass it on to the next generation? During these moments of COVID-19, in a moment in our country experience or look forward to an election, how are we telling our story, our faith story to others as a sign not only of hope, but as a promise that we are a community weaved together? I encourage you as you think in the months to come, and as you start thinking of how to be hopeful in the years to come as well, to think of the strand of your story, your individual story. How is that life, your life, weave into the larger tapestry of our community? What are the ways in which your sacred stories and mine come together to form a larger whole? And more importantly, how are we sharing our whole story with others in equity, justice, and compassion for us to be a bigger whole? Challenging times are ahead, yes. However, we are gathered in community of the sacred, empowered by a living tradition that encourages us to seek knowledge and truth, to be responsible for one another, to live deeply and to live compassionately. It is a deep moment and an important moment for us to live up to the aspiration of our faith, to know that our sacred stories collectively have an impact in the world, a world that is in need. May our stories gain shape together to help bring justice into the world, but also to do so with compassion and in love. May your story and mine be weaved together into the larger tapestry of faith within the loom of our community, for our sake and for the sake of future generations. May our witness today be a cover for them tomorrow. May it be so, and blessed be.
Please join me in singing When Our Heart is in a Holy Place.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
May our sacred stories be weaved together by the deepest aspirations of our faith, to do justice, to grow in compassion rooted in love, and to tend passionately to the garden of our life's sacred stories for generations to come. May you be well. Ashe, and blessed be.